we're just starting to look at how do we go from a table of values to the actual equation. Okay? And the relationship then is we have to kind of figure out what are the two parts that relate a linear expression or a linear relationship. We need to know the angle or slope, and that's somehow related to the changes in the ratio of change. And we also want to know the starting point, okay, or the position of that line. So those two things, the angle and position, are two things that describe a linear relationship. Okay, describes a picture of one. So those two things connect to something in a table and something in an equation. And that's what we want to start doing, is where can we find that slope in the table? Where can we find the starting position in the table? Where can we find the slope in an equation? And where can we find the starting position in an equation? Okay, so those are the kind of things that we want to think about as we're trying to go from these tables to the equations. So here we have the profit of a tackle company, so fishing tackle, depends on the number of fishing reels sold. So fishing tackle is just fishing equipment. So the data given is this. So we have 20 reels, the profit is negative $395. 40 reels, they start making some profit. So it seems like before they even sell any reels, they are in debt. Okay, and usually that's what happens with companies, that before they sell anything, they have overhead costs. So what's the relationship? As I sell more reels, I increase my profit. So I'm just going to describe that in those kind of simple terms. I'm not going to be very specific about it, but as we sell more reels, the more profit we make. Okay. Now, what we want to look for again is the two things that describe this linear relationship. Okay, one is the rate of change, which relates to slope. Okay, so I'm going to find my rate of change on the outside of the table here. So I'm going to see that as I increase the number of reels, so plus 20 reels, so I go from 20 to 40 reels, I increase my profit by, it looks like 600. Let's see here, so I'm going to just subtract 210 minus 395, okay, or minus negative 395. Okay, so when we subtract, we find the difference. So I increase $605. Okay, so the rate of change is going to be the change in my dependent variables compared to my change in my independent variable. And it's nice to have a unit rate. So to find the unit rate, I divide. So it's $30.25 for every one reel I sell. Okay, so that's the profit I make per reel. Okay, so there's my rate of change. I want to know where, so that essentially relates to the angle or slope. I want to know the position, or where I start. Well, to do that, what I can do is I can use my reference of 0. And I can use my rate to get back to 0. So minus 20 gets me back to 0 reels. But if I take away 20 reels, I have to go backwards $605. And that would take me to, it looks like, negative $1,000 is my starting profit. So I am in debt $1,000 to start. So the rate of change of the relationship is $30.25 per reel. I start with $1,000 of debt, so my function is going to look like this. I'm going to write it with y first, x and y first. So my output is equal to, I start with $1,000 of debt, but I start gaining money at $30.25 per reel. So I times that by the number of reels I sell. So there's my function. So my profit as a function of reals, so I could write it, I'm just going to use, instead of f of x, I'm going to use p for profit, r for reals. It's going to be 30.25 times the number of reals. And I start off with a debt of $1,000. So there's my function. I can use this equation then to calculate the profit for 30 reals sold. So profit for 30 reals sold is when I plug in 30 into my equation. So 30.25 times 30 minus $1,000 I started off in debt, and I'm still in debt negative $92.50, but I'm almost breaking even at 30 reals. So to break even means my profit equals 0. And if my profit is equal to 0, what I want to do is undo this calculation that got me to the 0. So 30.25 times r minus 1,000. And if I solve for this, undo this calculation means I'm solving. I'm going to add $1,000 to both sides of the equation. So what number of reals do I need to sell to undo that $1,000 of debt? Well, I'm going to divide, because that's a times. So I undo that with a divide. So the number of reals is equal to, and I don't think this is a whole number, it's going to be about 33 reals. Okay, so about 33 reals will break even. Okay, I need to, if I want to make a profit, I need to sell 34 reals. If I want to just about break even, I'm selling 33 reals. Okay, and the way I figured that out is I set my profit to 0 and then undid or solved that equation. What was the loss for 0 reals produced? Well, that was my initial value. 0 reals will give me my starting position. So my initial loss is $1,000 of debt. Okay, and this value represents something called the y-intercept, or the initial value, or the y-intercept. Okay, and this is called the y-intercept because it's where our graph is going to cross the y-axis. So when I graph this, now you can put this into a graphing tool. You can put that equation into a graphing tool, and basically we're going to start off, it's going to look like this. Okay, we start off with negative reals, we're going to end up with positive reals here. It's going to kind of go like that. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to say that this is maybe from negative 10 to 120 reals, and this is going to be from negative 1,500 to maybe 3,000 or something like that. Okay, so we don't need to be too accurate with this, but just give me an idea. Are we talking about decimal 0.1 values? Are we talking about tens? Are we talking about thousands? Okay, it's important to be able to give me an approximate scale. And this does not have to be exact. It just has to be about, so I have an idea what this picture is going to look like. And then we can just kind of fill in as we want here. Okay, 40 reals is going to be somewhere around there. 70 reals, 100 reals, like that. Okay, and again, we can put this into our graphing tool, into Desmos, and we can adjust our windows to be able to see a graph that looks something like that. And there's no right window, there's just a good enough window.